Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Star Wars Acolyte Episode 8 video. It was the finale, so naturally they answered some questions, raised more, and frustratingly did not answer a lot of other questions too. Like, they only answered some questions, leaving a bunch of stuff for theoretical future seasons, but who knows if we'll ever get a season 2 of this, so the idea is you probably won't get answers about a lot of things. One of my complaints about the actual episodes, I did have a couple problems with the way things went down, but I'll explain the things that they did confirm and how they changed the lore during the episode. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. Probably the biggest thing people will be talking about after this, in addition to not answering a lot of questions, is the fact that they did answer, like one of the biggest things they answered is Darth Plagueis. They are doing Darth Plagueis. Qimir, even though people were split on this fact in earlier episodes when he mentioned the word Sith, like, you Jedi would call me Sith, but he didn't name himself a Lord of the Sith. Like, he didn't explain what his Sith name might be if he was Sith. I think Darth Plagueis, hiding in the shadows of that same Sith cave where he'd been training Osha all this time the last couple of episodes, confirms that Qimir is Sith. He just didn't say his name during the episode. They just referred to him as the stranger on the series. One of the big weaknesses, also, I feel like, of the series just in general, this will probably be a complaint from a lot of different people, is the fact that all the Qimir stuff was like the most interesting thing on the show. They should have focused way more on his storyline during the actual series. But if you remember, when they revealed that they were initially making the series, they pitched it as a Sith-based series, like we'd be following the Sith characters as if they were the protagonists and the Jedi were the antagonists. There's a rumor that the showrunner wanted to have a Sith protagonist that was calling themselves Sith, like a more Sith-based plotline like we all wanted, but Lucasfilm actually wouldn't let her do that because they were too afraid that casuals out there wouldn't like a series that was so focused on the Sith. Which sounds absolutely bonkers to me. Like, why are you afraid of that, Lucasfilm? That would have been amazing. So if you wondered why there was so little of the Qimir stuff, even though it seemed like it was working the best out of all the different storylines, it's because he wasn't really added till like very, very late in the process, almost too late to completely rework the series around him. The title of the episode was The Acolyte, a reference to the actual title of the series itself, and referencing Osha becoming the new Sith Acolyte, aka the new apprentice, which Qimir has said that he'd wanted this whole time. I want to have an apprentice to pass my knowledge on to. There'll be a lot of questions now because of the existence of Darth Plagueis. He is the confirmed Sith Master right now. That means that Qimir is the actual apprentice right now. So if the rule of two stands, they're not going to be breaking that. What does that mean about Osha becoming the new apprentice? There can't be two apprentices at the same time to the same master. So one of them is going to have to kill one of the others, and we know because Darth Plagueis was Palpatine's master, Darth Plagueis can't be the one to die, meaning that Qimir's life expectancy probably just went way, way down. Because the other big thing that they teased towards the end of the episode is this is how Darth Plagueis learns about using the midichlorians to create life. Because of the Force Virgins, the way that May and Osha were created by Mother Anastasia, splitting one person into two people using the Force Virgins.
He could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life.
It's kind of like the joke of Palpatine telling Anakin to kill Count Dooku. Like, he wanted Anakin, you're the shiny new thing, you're way more powerful, you'd be a way better apprentice to me, so let's kill the old Padawan. We don't want him anymore. He's yesterday's news.
Kill him. Kill him now. Do it.
That's part of the whole idea of the Sith, the rule of two, is that you can't become the Sith Master unless you kill the previous master, and you can't really get another apprentice until you kill the previous apprentice. So across history, Sith Masters can have many different apprentices, like Palpatine had many Sith apprentices. It's just the previous apprentice has to die for some reason. There are cases of them breaking the rule of two out there, like Count Dooku had the secret apprentice Asajj Ventress while he was still the apprentice to Palpatine. If we're talking about there being two apprentices on the Acolyte, the problem is that Darth Plagueis is like right there. He knows all about Osha and May. The only way I see them wiggling through the canon there to like squeeze this all in so that it actually fits would be to technically call Osha an Acolyte and say that Acolyte doesn't mean apprentice, when technically it kind of does because Qimir mentioned those words in the same breath in a previous episode, but they could just say it's a technicality, like, oh, it's still rule of two. She's not the Padawan because she's only the Acolyte. Either way, at some point, she would have to theoretically kill Qimir. But here's the problem with that. Because we know that Darth Plagueis is alive now, we know that Palpatine will eventually become his Padawan, and eventually Palpatine is going to be the one to kill Darth Plagueis. That basically puts a ticking clock on Osha's life as well, too. Like, she can't continue to be a Sith apprentice or even a Sith Master because she can't kill Darth Plagueis. He's going to be around. And because Plagueis seeks Palpatine out to become his next apprentice eventually, that also means he has to either kill Osha or think that she's dead. You can let me know how you think they're going to untie that knot in the future, but that's assuming that they get future seasons, and it's possible that Lucasfilm, this is another big problem of the series too, they spent $180 million, probably more than that. That's just a reported budget. It probably went way over budget. The biggest reason why they probably won't give this a season 2, I mean they could, but the biggest reason why they might not is just because it's so expensive. For example, the She-Hulk series at Marvel. Now, there are a lot of complaints. People didn't like the She-Hulk series, but the primary reason why Marvel isn't doing a season 2 is because of budget. They spent way over $200 million making that and just did not get the return in terms of subscribers to Disney+. So it just didn't make sense for them to spend another $250 million to make a season of TV that nobody was going to care about. So a lot of whether or not Acolyte actually gets a season 2 will depend on if it's justified in the new subscribers that it brought in or did not bring in for Disney+. So I think it'll probably be a long time before we actually hear any official comment from Lucasfilm, and a lot of times they won't tell you that they've canceled something, they just will never mention it again, like, oh, we could do a season 2, and it's like 10 years later, oh yeah, we still could do it, we didn't say that it was canceled, but it's like 10 years later and they still haven't said anything, so is it still really a thing? The actual episode starts in the moments of last week's episode where she still got the Cortosis helmet on, doing the heavy breathing, Darth Vader style, but going full Darth Vader. Qimir seems really happy with himself, and she starts to freak out, basically overcome with the negative emotions. Remember, it sort of amplifies your power in the dark side, just all the negative emotions that you bring with her, and they're trying to tease the idea that she's crazy powerful and can't control all these negative emotions. Like, they lead to so much power that he freaks out and actually has trouble taking the mask off. Like, that's how powerful she becomes. Now that we know that Darth Plagueis has been there this whole time, sort of hiding off in the cave in the darkness, you can just see him licking his chops like, oh, look at all this power. This is going to be so much fun. She explains she saw a Force vision of things that might come to pass, which eventually winds up being a version of what we see happen on Brendok when she winds up killing Sol and May extending her hand to her. It's a slightly different version of what she saw, but it's meant to be a reference to Anakin Skywalker's Force visions during Revenge of the Sith. Remember, he kept seeing Padme dying, but the way that she died, the circumstances around her death kept shifting based on his actions. So it's meant to be a reminder that even though you have the ability to see the future in the Force, like you can get Force visions if you're very powerful, it doesn't always mean that those visions will come to pass in the way that you see them. There's also the trap of the self-fulfilling prophecy too, like the actions that you take to avoid some dangerous future might in fact lead to that dangerous future. The way they play Qimir, though, this early part of the episode, he just wants to straight up kill May. Like, you better find her before I do, because I'll just kill her on the spot. Then we see Sol and May wait in orbit over Brendok. He probably knows that Qimir and Osha are also probably going to return here, and that's why he wanted to come, just anticipating that they would show up. And because he wants to set the record straight, like tell Osha and May what really did happen, and then face the judgment of the Jedi Council. He does seem a little unhinged during the episode. The way they play the scene, though, it sounds like he told May the whole truth off-screen on the journey over here. Like we said, the flashback we had in episode 7 could have just been this brief conversation that they had here. We didn't need to spend an entire episode on another flashback. That episode could have been an email. Would have rather spent way more time on all the Sith stuff going on in this episode. Sol continues to double down on thinking that everything that he did 16 years ago, killing their mother, was the right thing to do. This is one of the weirder character turns during the episode because they play it like he's actually doing the right thing and he's coming clean about all this, but the way he talks, he really sounds like he did a terrible thing and is trying to cover it up. Like he sounds like the villain in this situation. Like, did you mean for him to sound like a villain? Because he really sounds like a villain right now. They have another one of those funny moments, or maybe not so funny moments, where he's about to info dump all this lore to May, then she tases him, stopping him from explaining a bunch of things. They've done that way too many times this season with characters like, okay, explain everything that's going on. Nope, can't do it. Something bad happened. We have to wait till next week. Basically going to explain to her how Mother Anastasia used the Virgins and the Force on the planet to literally split the two of them into two different people from one actual baby. That's why during episode 7, their Force signatures looked the exact same. And even if they were twins, they should have looked different, because they're literally meant to be one body split into two people. Here's the problem with that. They never explained during the episode why Mother Anastasia did that. Like, what was the point in creating two different beings from one being? Why would the Force witches need that? If you wanted a being that was super powerful, then wouldn't you just want the one single combined being? Or maybe the act of splitting them into two made them more powerful, like recombining them into one would eventually make them even more powerful than they were initially? There's just way too many big questions there, like it's a huge plot point that they never really get into. Pip the droid helps her hop the escape ship and get out, and this sort of sets up the idea that Osha's Pip becomes May's Pip and will be like her companion droid for season 2 or whatever future story they have. Later in the episode, Osha also recognizes too, like, oh hey, it's Pip. Wait, nope, not anymore. It's not my Pip. The funny thing too, and I'll talk about this later in the episode, is that Pip does not get its mind wiped, like its memory is not wiped. So it's kind of like R2-D2 after Revenge of the Sith when they wiped C-3PO's mind, but they didn't wipe R2-D2's mind. So like literally he remembers everything from the Clone Wars and before, going way, way back. They use this for a solid asteroid chase scene, this time just chasing each other through the rings of the planet. Notice Basil disables the ship before he can fire on her. They're never really clear why Basil does that. Basil was even trying to kill May way back during episode 6. Why would he be trying to save her life at this point? Like, what is Basil's connection to May and Osha? Like, it doesn't seem like he has any skin in the game here. He just happens to be there. To be fair, I don't think that Sol was going to try and completely destroy her ship. I think he was just trying to disable it. Back at the Jedi Temple, we finally get a big payoff. We find out that David Harewood is playing the senator who hates the Jedi and wanted the Oversight Committee to be checking it out, just digging through everything that they were doing, basically pumping the brakes on everything the Jedi did. There were so many theories about who he'd be playing because he showed up on IMDb, but nobody knew who it was. People thought that he was going to be the secret Sith Lord, but because we saw Darth Plagueis, that can't be the truth. And because Qimir seems like the actual apprentice, that means that David Harewood also can't be the Sith apprentice. So if he's going to wind up being an evil character, it's possible that he's just working with Darth Plagueis, because even though the Sith have the rule of 2, they do work with a lot of other organizations or try to manipulate a lot of other organizations. I think that whole idea, like the whole Senate versus the Jedi plot, is just setting up Palpatine coming to power in the Senate, then just continuing that on the road to Order 66. Because one of the ideas is that Darth Plagueis came up with this idea to manipulate the Senate, like control the Senate and use them against the Jedi, and he wanted Palpatine to eventually become part of that plan. Later, when Palpatine killed Darth Plagueis, he just made that plan his plan. So initially, all the politicking that was going on between the Jedi and the Senate was something that Darth Plagueis came up with. He bandies back and forth with Vernestra Rwoh. The music is kind of ominous. That's why they want you to think of Sith when you see his character. Also, he's standing next to the red stairway there. So there's just like a lot of scenes where he's standing near red. Very, very Sith coded. So even though he might not be Sith himself, they just want to make it seem like he is on the side of the Sith. A lot of his reasoning as to why he doesn't like the Jedi isn't totally far off base. Like some of it goes a little far, but it's not totally wrong. He calls them a massive system of unchecked power, posing as a religion. The funny thing about that is that Jedi is an actual real-life religion that you can get checked on your driver's license. But he also goes on to call them a cult. The funny thing about that is that the Sith are also kind of like a cult. When he talks about how they lie, they pretend to control their emotions, projecting a positive image, but secretly underneath, they get up to all kinds of shady stuff, just like any other organization. Vernestra Rwoh literally winds up doing something like that at the end of the episode. Like she's informing on Sol, saying all the bad things that the Jedi did to cover things up 16 years ago by doing the exact same thing. Throughout their conversation, the ominous music just continues to swell behind them, like there's just something really shady about his character. And he also starts talking about the lie of the Jedi. I think that's meant to be a callback to the Code of the Sith that Qimir was speaking during episode 2. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Like the Sith Code from Knights of the Old Republic.
And peace
is a lie, I know.
When he says it's only a matter of time till someone snaps, who will be strong enough to stop him, that's another Anakin Skywalker reference. The answer is that no one was strong enough to stop him. I mean, Luke Skywalker was able to get him to pause for a little while, but theoretically couldn't stop him. It was Anakin Skywalker himself that chose to turn back to the light. When he talks to her about facing the problem that's right in front of her, it's another metaphor for facing the potential Sith. Like, obviously, he's going to be a big problem. They're teasing him being a big antagonist in whatever the future of the story would wind up being, if it does get a season 2, mind you. Chancellor Drellick that he name drops during this conversation is the Chancellor of the Republic right now, who we see at the end of the episode at the other head of the table. Fun fact too, that's also a bit of a deep cut for Knights of the Old Republic. The showrunner borrowed his name from a Knights of the Old Republic character who was named Talos Drellick, a human male that was part of the new Sith Empire after the Galactic War. They said they borrowed a ton of different things from the Knights of the Old Republic game, like for instance, they based a lot of the Osha and May characters on Darth Kraya. Qimir then asks Osha if she'll become his Padawan again. She declines, saying she's not her sister, also finding out that May made the deal without even thinking about it, and this is her last chance. Like, I think the idea is that because she knows who he is, he'll try to kill her if she declines. Probably also get a little bit of help from Darth Plagueis, too. Then we get that scene confirming Darth Plagueis is sort of creeping out from the shadows like he's been watching everything that Qimir has been doing with Osha this whole time. The true master surfaces. And we get to one of the big problems of the episode, in that they really saved too much stuff for potential season 2. They should have doubled way down on all this Sith stuff and done this like a couple episodes ago. We should have found out about Qimir and Darth Plagueis behind him in like the middle of the season. But I think his existence also explains some details about how young May eventually encountered Qimir when she was younger and sort of fell in with him. She probably escaped from the fire, the way that we see later in the episode, using that hatch tube into the other entrance. Found her way to a nearby town eventually, and then just lived for a little while on her own until Qimir and Darth Plagueis, probably Darth Plagueis, sensed her power in the Force. It would make sense that Sith would also be interested in the Force Virgins that's going on there, so they'd have a presence on the planet. So you probably have Darth Plagueis sending Qimir to just do more research, just like the Jedi were sending people to do research about the Force Virgins. That's probably how Qimir wound up founding May, who then accepted his offer to become his apprentice. But the way they explain it, I think the idea is that Darth Plagueis never revealed himself to May. Like, May had no idea that Darth Plagueis exists. She always thought it was just Qimir. And I think part of the idea is that if she had initially passed the test, which Qimir kept telling her, like, you have to do all these different things to become my Sith apprentice, if she'd actually successfully done that, then he would have told her about Darth Plagueis. Then we get that scene of Vernestra Rwoh trying to contact someone secretly. The voice saying that this is unorthodox is never identified. Like, we don't know who she's speaking to over the comms, but I think the idea is that she's trying to contact Yoda to set up that meeting at the end of the episode in the end credits scene where she explains the real truth of what happened, not the lie that she told the Senate. Like, we might have a slight problem. My old Padawan who fell to the dark side and I thought I killed actually turned out to be alive, and we have another person who's super powerful in the Force who just joined him to become his next apprentice. But the way they played in the episode, it sounds like Vernestra Rwoh has no idea that Darth Plagueis exists, because he wasn't there 16 years ago, and the way they played the flashbacks that Vernestra Rwoh has using the Force, sort of seeing the Jedi instant replay of what really happened 16 years ago, when she senses Qimir there, it's a new thing. It's not like she's sensing Qimir in the distant past 16 years ago, so I think that Qimir and Darth Plagueis were not there 16 years ago. So for now, nobody but Qimir knows about Darth Plagueis, but Osha will probably wind up learning about him. We learn about another new ability that Qimir has. When Osha starts talking about hacking the platform to enter, he pulls a Batman on her, basically disappearing. Sol goes back to the scene of the crime where he failed to save May, and we find out how May survived. She fell into that access hatch and just escaped that way. We get that Qimir versus Sol fight. He's wearing his Cortosis helmet and his bracer. It's a pretty solid fight. When he says, "Thank you for leading me to her, we make a great team," he's just messing with Sol, because he would have never run into Osha or learned about her if it weren't what the Jedi and Sol did during the events of the series. Like, thank you for taking the L on this one. And because this fight is happening during broad daylight, you get a much better look at Qimir's fighting style. It's way more vicious, way more aggressive than traditional Jedi style, like you would expect Sith lightsaber fighting styles to be. Qimir also jokes that Osha will kill Sol if she gets here before their fight is over, which she does eventually wind up doing. Osha and May get their reunion. Notice how May is still in white, Osha is the one in black, like they've gone full 180 on both of their character arcs from the beginning of the series, so the evil one is good now, and the good one is evil now. She starts the whole thread about telling Osha the truth about Sol killing their mother, which drives her a little mad, and it takes a while for her to believe, like she has to get Sol to admit to it out loud for her to believe it. Sol winds up being able to overpower Qimir, destroying his lightsaber, basically proving that he's a better fighter. Also setting up the idea that there's only going to be one lightsaber, Sol's lightsaber, left for that big twist with Osha. He takes his Cortosis helmet off and tries to goad Sol into killing him, all to bait him into just distracting him so that Osha has time to show up so that they'll be able to take him 3-on-1. Tries to goad May into killing him using his own lightsaber, which obviously she does not. They repeat a lot of dialogue from Return of the Jedi too, like this is a line straight out of Palpatine's mouth and out of Luke Skywalker's mouth.
Strike him down, and your journey will be complete.
Strike me down with all of your hatred, and your journey towards the dark side will be complete.
She explains she'd rather have Sol pay for his crimes, face the Senate, the Jedi Council. Notice how surprised, though, Qimir is when Sol explains how May and Osha are the same being, split into two using the Force versions. Like, this isn't something that he knew about before, and this will probably now be how Darth Plagueis learns about it eventually, like, this is very interesting, we should study this. Maybe this will eventually lead to the Force itself creating a being, like a Virgins, but that winds up being a person. Part of the idea with Force Virginses in the canon is that they're usually meant to be places, not people. The exception is Anakin when it was an actual person. So May and Osha, if it wasn't clear, are not the Force Virgins. The Force Virgins was just like around this place, this area here. Mother Anastasia probably just conceived a child the old-fashioned way, then used the Force to pull them into two different people. Then May gets Sol to admit to killing their mother so that Osha can hear it as she sees her coming in the background, and she winds up force choking, killing Sol, R.I.P. Qimir even seemed a little surprised by that too, like, damn. Notice how when she threw the lightsaber to the side, they focus on the crystal, all to set the idea of Osha bleeding it red. When she's force choking the life out of Sol, she bleeds the lightsaber crystal red with her hate. It's all about the idea of how Sith create their lightsabers. There are no naturally occurring red lightsaber crystals, so in order to create one, you basically have to take a lightsaber crystal from another Jedi and bleed it red. It's the same way Darth Vader created his red lightsaber because his old lightsaber was taken by Obi-Wan Kenobi and given to Luke later. So now Osha's Sith lightsaber is essentially Sol's old lightsaber. A lot of meaning, metaphors baked into that too, because it's also the object that killed her mother, like the source of her pain. Her killing Sol also fulfills what Qimir just told May to do. Kill this person and it will complete your journey to the dark side, so Osha basically just completed her journey to the dark side. One of the funny moments here too, I kind of laughed a little bit because Qimir watched her lightsaber turn red and he's like, Yep, that sounds about right. That's what's supposed to happen here. The rest of the Jedi arrive. Vernestra Rwoh instantly senses Qimir through the Force, who then senses that she's sensing him and puts his Cortosis helmet back on because it acts kind of like a Magneto helmet, blocking psychic signatures and blocking the Force. Confirming a whole bunch of details. I'll talk about that later in the video too when we get to that part of the episode, because there were a lot of theories about who Qimir's former master was. This just confirms that it was Vernestra Rwoh. When they're escaping in the tube, the way that it lights up also felt just like the scene in Empire Strikes Back with Luke Skywalker walking through the tube that lit up. Then the Jedi arrive, they see Sol's body, Vernestra Rwoh does her Jedi instant replay, just like we saw them do earlier in the series. Using the Force, she sees everything that happened 16 years ago, like the actual truth. She also clocks Qimir secretly being there, like she kind of senses him, even though she can't read his thoughts. She's like, I think I feel someone up there, like so something ominous in the background. And because earlier in the episode, she did actually pick up on his mind, she knows that it's him specifically. May and Osha go back to that same tree from the flashback in episode 3. It's meant to be a mirror for that scene with them together, where they forgive each other for everything, they make nice. She also recites the same poem that they spoke to each other when they were children. Osha then agrees to be Qimir's Sith Padawan if he'll let May live, and to prevent the Jedi from using her memories to find the Sith, they'll basically wipe it. But I think part of the idea here is that Pip will remember like the droid will remember everything, just R2-D2 style, and you have Vernestra Rwoh that knows all about Osha and what's going on with Qimir, so she'll probably also tell May about it in the future, so eventually she will learn about her sister again. The whole clip with the mind wipe also pays off Qimir's quote from episode 2.
Please don't do the memory wipe thing or whatever it is you guys do.
They take May back to the Jedi Temple, and Vernestra Rwoh informs the committee about part of the truth from 16 years ago. Like, she obviously, like I said, is lying to them, just the same way the Jedi 16 years ago lied. I am sure this definitely will not wind up biting them in the ass again in the future. She winds up pinning all the Jedi deaths in present day on Sol, claiming that he's the one that did it, and then killed himself. So it also kind of sounds like she lied to the Jedi Council, but at the end of the episode, that end credit scene, it sounds like she does tell the actual truth to Yoda, or most of the truth, but I think part of the idea is that she's just telling him, not the entire council. David Harewood's Senator character orders the external review of the Jedi Order, which would play out through potential season 2, whatever future the story winds up being. Later, when Vernestra Rwoh asks for May's help in finding Qimir, she kind of clocks the idea that they wiped her memory. Like, you don't remember your sister? Oh, okay, that's probably because your memory was wiped. She doesn't seem particularly worried about that part. Like, Vernestra Rwoh knows who everybody is that's involved in this, so she's probably just going to fill May in on all the details that she needs. But the idea is that she's going to try and use May and search her memories, try and recover some of those memories so that she can track down Qimir, confirming that she is the person who left all those scars on Qimir's back with her lightsaber whip. So I think the idea here is that they're saying that if they did get a season 2, Vernestra Rwoh would have to become a much bigger character in the story because it'd be all about the hunt for Qimir. Qimir would be a much bigger character in the story, so they'd have a rematch like Vernestra Rwoh versus Qimir in the future. Darth Plagueis would also have to become a much bigger character. Based on the timeline right now, Palpatine has not been born yet, so like he isn't anywhere near what's going on unless there's like a huge time jump. Darth Plagueis will probably start doing research into using the Force versions to actually create life and experimenting with that. Supposedly in the canon, he actually made several experiments, failed experiments in creating life until he eventually perfected the technique. Then I believe the idea is that the Force sort of retaliated against that, like someone is using the Force to create life to basically create Anakin itself. He was sort of the answer to Darth Plagueis messing around with that. The Force was like, no, we don't like that. We're going to create somebody to fix that. That's not exactly the way things went down, though, because Palpatine was the one to kill Darth Plagueis, and eventually Anakin turned to the dark side. Then we get that end credit scene where it seems like Vernestra Rwoh goes to tell Yoda the real truth. Like, this is all the things that I just lied to the Senate about. This is why we might have a dark Jedi out there that used to be my Padawan. Gonna be a bit of a problem because they also have their own apprentice now who seems like they're even more powerful. So just a lot of stuff going on in the background we need to start working on. The other big thing, too, is that none of the Jedi characters ever really mentioned the word Sith. It was really only Qimir when he was talking to Sol, and remember, Sol died in the episode before he told any of the other Jedi about the word Sith, or the idea that Sith exist right now. So I think Vernestra Rwoh still doesn't think that this is a Sith-based plot. I think she just thinks that Qimir is a dark Jedi. There are a lot of theories about how they were going to keep this in canon, like how do you avoid this issue? Well, you either kill everybody that knows the secret, or everybody that knows the secret winds up turning evil. And that's basically what they did. They killed everybody that knew, that heard the word Sith, or in Osha's case, for instance, she turned evil. I think I already explained all the issues that I had with the episode, just the series in general. Like, they had some good ideas, but it kind of felt like a mess. Like, they were trying to make a different type of series that Lucasfilm wouldn't let them make, and it just led to a whole bunch of issues. A couple really solid lightsaber fight scenes, though, but I am just not expecting the series to actually get that season 2. I don't think they're going to answer a lot of these questions. There's so much going on, so many unanswered questions, so if there's anything that I didn't address in the video or any Easter eggs or references you spotted in the episode that I didn't talk about, just write them below in the comments. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up this week. We have Comic-Con happening in a couple days. Deadpool and Wolverine is coming out. I'll be doing all kinds of videos for that. And we have House of the Dragon this weekend, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that. We've also got The Boys Season 4 finale coming tomorrow, so that'll be like my next real big video. Everybody click here for that. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for my House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 6 video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.